Hello, y'all. I'm Randy, and I'm one of the pastors here at Acton Methodist Church. And today we're going to read Mr. Seahorse. I'm so excited to read this to you. It's by Eric Carle, and it's a great book. So I hope you can see the pictures because it's pretty big. So Mr. Seahorse. So you see, just like your parents or your grandparents, there's a Mr. and Mrs. So Mr. and Mrs. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea. Mrs. Seahorse began to wiggle and twist this way and that. See how she's twisting and wiggling? It's time for me to lay my eggs, she said. Can I help? Asked Mr. Seahorse. Oh, yes, thank you, said Mrs. Seahorse, and she laid her eggs into a pouch on Mr. Seahorse's belly. I'll take good care of our eggs, said Mr. Seahorse, I promise. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a group of trumpet fish. They were hidden in a patch of reeds. Can you see the trumpet fish? How about now? You see the trumpet fish? So you can see how Mr. Seahorse might have missed them. So you've always got to be on the lookout for the trumpet fish. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. How are you, Mr. Stickleback? Asked Mr. Seahorse. Delighted, replied Mr. Stickleback. I just built a nest, and right away Mrs. Stickleback laid her eggs into it. Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch. Keep up the good work, Mr. Seahorse said, and swam on his way. See Mr. Stickleback? As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a lionfish hidden behind a coral reef. You see the lionfish? How about now? You see that lionfish back there? How you might have missed that? So you have to watch for lionfish when you're swimming in the sea. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. How are you, Mr. Tilapia? Asked Mr. Seahorse. Mr. Tilapia couldn't answer. His mouth was full of eggs. I know, said Mr. Seahorse. Mrs. Tilapia laid her eggs, and now you're taking good care of them until they hatch. Mr. Tilapia nodded his head. You must be very happy, said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. See Mr. Tilapia? He's got the eggs in his mouth, and that's how that species takes care of their eggs. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by several leaf fish hidden among the seaweed. Can you see the leaf fish? How about now? Can you see the leaf fish? So Mr. Seahorse had to watch out for leaf fish also. There's all kind of danger in the sea. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. How are you, Mr. Curtis? Asked Mr. Seahorse. Perfectly fine, said Mr. Curtis. Mrs. Curtis laid her eggs, and I have stuck them on my head. You see, look, see those eggs on his head? Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch. You're doing a good job, said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. Look, Mr. Seahorse is upside down looking at Mr. Curtis with the eggs on his head. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a stonefish hidden behind a rock. Do you see the stonefish? Now do you see the stonefish hidden behind the rock? But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Pipe?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Couldn't be better," replied Mr. Pipe. "Mrs. Pipe laid her eggs along my belly." Look at those eggs. See there along Mr. Pipe's belly? "Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch." "You should feel proud of yourself," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Bullhead?" See, that's Mr. Bullhead. Asked Mr. Seahorse. "Tip-top," replied Mr. Bullhead. Mrs. Bullhead laid her eggs, and the eggs hatched. "Now I'm babysitting." Look at all the baby bullheads. Look at all of them. "You're doing a fine job," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. The time had come for the Seahorse babies to be born. Look at all these Seahorse babies. Mr. Seahorse wiggled and twisted this way and that, and at last the babies tumbled from Mr. Seahorse's pouch and swam away. One baby turned around and tried to come back into the pouch. "Oh no," said Mr. Seahorse. "I do love you, but now you're ready to be on your own." So he let them swim away. And that's the end of the book and the story of Mr. Seahorse. I hope you have a great day.